Hello friends, welcome back to my YouTube channel. Please do subscribe to my channel in case you have not subscribed it yet. Today's video we are going to talk about Azure Data Explorer, but we'll have more of a hands-on session. We'll see how we could create a database and do some ingestion of the data within the Azure Data Explorer. Primarily, this would be a video in which we'll learn how we are going to create and delete a database. That's a simple operation, not something very complex or anything, but you could create multiple databases and you could even delete those databases within a cluster. And how we are going to ingest data from a public blob from Azure Storage Container. I'll be using a public blob, so it means anybody with the link, those blobs are directly accessible. But in case you have private blobs, so you could use a SAS signature, the best practice to actually give access to someone else within your Azure storage container. So let's get our hands dirty and see how we could utilize these two activities within Azure Data Explorer. Before we could ingest the data into the Azure Data Explorer, firstly, let's see, we have some data already there as a blob container in my storage account within Azure. So if I go on to portal.azure.com and because I've already logged in, so you could see I have a storage account, and within the storage account I have a container, and within the container I have a data container, and it has a department.csv. It's a typical CSV file with the 3 columns, and if you want to see the what exactly is there, if you want to see the edit, you could see it's a department number, DNAME and location. That's all. So typically a small CSV file just for demonstration purpose. So that's what I have, and I could actually use copy that the whole, this is remember this is a public file. Anybody with the link could access that, so I'll just copy to that. Otherwise, the best way to do in this case is to use the SAS or shared access signature for sharing your blobs with the other parties, which could be expired, or it's a kind of a token which you could use. So because now we have that, so let's go on to the dataexplorer.azure.com. So once I actually log in into there, so we'll get certain options to actually ingest the data, and we could use this Azure storage to actually get that data out here. So let's go on to your cluster. So your cluster is here. You could ingest your data, query the data, or create a database. Now if you see, I don't have a database out here. I have just a cluster out there. So the first thing what we could do is to just I have a database called as test, which I created. Let me delete this for you, and then we could just create another one. So this is how you delete a database. Very simple. Select that, click on that delete button, and it is going to delete that database for you. Okay, so once the database is deleted, we'll try to create a new database, and then we'll ingest that data from that CSV file within our cluster. It's taking little while. Let's see how much time it takes, and then we could go it from there. Okay, so yeah, the database is deleted. So let me create a database. So whenever you are going to create a database, the by default cluster is selected because I'm working on a free cluster, and then you need to specify the database name. So let's say I create a database called as test, and I'll say next, create a database. So once the database is created, so my cluster would have the first database called as test. Okay, it is created. Close, and you could just, let's say, refresh this, and then because it's a free cluster, I can create certain databases. I'm not paying for that, and then you could go on to your let's say your query, and so you have a RKV cluster and you have a test one also. So let's say I want to create another database. I want to create let's say RKVDB. Let's say you create a database. So I'm having a second database, a simple operation you could do just through the web UI of Azure Data Explorer. Let's go on to the query, and now within the cluster you'll get 2 databases. That's there. Now if I just want to use not exactly we are going to dive into custom query language, but KQL, but if I just want to use, let's say, show databases and I run it, so it would actually tell me which databases I have, certain information about that, a JSON information, a JPath about that, and for RKBDB also read, write, and access and all that stuff that could be there. Now let's say if I click on this and if I just, let's say I could use show tables also, which is another command, but this is not gonna return me anything because I have definitely selected RKBDB, but the show tables command doesn't return me anything because there is no table out there yet. Okay, so I just wanted to give you a brief overview about the KQL or custom query language, how it works. We'll have certain more videos regarding that too, how to use it, how we could do aggregations and other operations in that. But right now I just wanted to give you a somewhat basic information because you might have used show databases or show tables command in another RDBMS system. So we could, I just wanted to introduce a small simple KQL for you. Okay, now coming back to the because we want to ingest, that's our second part within this lecture. So I have two databases, RKBDB and test. I want to ingest the data. I could go on to the ingest. Okay, now the first thing what it is asking for is actually the destination. Typically I would expect like a source to come on that side, but it firstly asks for a destination and then it would ask for a source. So that's fine. We'll say new table. So the cluster is there and the database would be RKBDB and new table. I want a new table to be created. If you have certain, let's say you want to ingest the data into an existing table, you could utilize that, but I'm going to use the new table and it's a departments table, let's say, and I move on to the next, which is a source. Now from the source, I could use a blob container, Gen2 container, Event Hub, or Amazon S3. Let me use a blob and I'll just copy this, the blob storage URI, and I'll paste it out here. So once I'll paste it, it gives me a tick sign, which looks fine. Everything is working because it's a public access. Otherwise, if you paste it like this, it may give you an error because I have given a public access, which is not a recommended practice. But for the demonstration purpose and making it simple, I'm just putting it around like this. So I'll go on to the next, which is a schema part. And if you see, it is already showing me the partial data preview. This preview is just like for 4 records, but because my file is like 4 records, it's a simple file, small file. I'm just kind of importing it. Ignore the first record. Yes, I just want to ignore that because that contained the actual column headings, department number. It automatically does the senses the type of the data. So it says long, string, and string. You want to change the column, you can change the data type to different data types over here. You could add a column, you could delete a column, or you could do what you call sorting or descending or other orders. You could do that. And it is also creating a mapping name because it is actually creating a new table called as departments, and it is going to read it from the CSV and then create a mapping information for that. So kind of looks fine to me, and I'm just gonna use the start ingestion, and it actually starts a kind of a pipeline at the back, and the cluster is running that pipeline. And yes, ingestion preparation, ingestion, and data preview, everything looks fine. We see that, and that's how if I see on to the query, and now if I go on to the RKB database and if I see the departments, so you could see those particular let's say department number, D name, and location is technically 3 columns which we automatically built, which were mapped, and that information is automatically stored out here. As now you can see, we have the department table created, and department number is there, D name is there, location is there. Now before we end this video, I just want to show you one more custom query language, that is a select command. So now typically I just want to see the data out here, so I could just use our departments. Okay, that's my table, and I can say take, let's say 4 or 5 or 3. So if I take, I know there are 4 records, but if I take 3, So I'll just run this, and this would actually show me all the 3 records out there. This is a very brief demo about the custom query language. We'll have some videos regarding that, but don't worry about it. This is just like how you could show your databases, tables, and even do a select query out here. So I hope, guys, by this video now you are able to understand how you could create your databases. You could actually ingest the data from a CSV file or from multiple kind of sources which Azure Data Explorer provides you. You just have to get it connected, though the method which I have used is like a public container access container, which is not the recommended practice. You must use a SaaS signature or something else, which should be secured and the right way of giving access to the other people. So I'll be back with some more videos on Azure Data Explorer, so please stay tuned, and please do subscribe to my channel. Thank you.